Did you know there's a figure people claim you can only see in reflections? Something they call the window man. It started with a girl brushing her teeth late at night. In the mirror, she noticed someone standing behind her, tall, thin, completely still. But when she turned around, the room was empty. She tried to tell herself it was nothing. But the next night, it happened again. And this time, the figure was closer, like it was leaning in, trying to see her face. Terrified, she called her dad. He checked the whole room, closet, hallway, under the bed, nothing. But when he glanced at the mirror, his face drained of color. He whispered, "Don't turn around. Whatever you do, don't look directly at it. Because once the window man knows you've seen him, he follows you." She froze. In the reflection, the figure slowly raised its hand, almost touching her shoulder. Her dad yanked her out of the bathroom and shut off the light, breaking the reflection. They slept in the living room that night. By morning, only one of them woke up, and on the bathroom mirror, a finger had traced the words, "Now you see me." If your mirror ever blinks, even once, get out of the room immediately. There's a legend about something called the reflection that isn't yours. People say it shows up late at night, usually when you walk past a mirror without looking directly at it. One girl said she first noticed it when she was brushing her teeth. She spat, looked up, and her reflection didn't move. It just stared back at her, like it was waiting. She froze. Then her reflection slowly lifted its hand, but she didn't move at all. She backed away, thinking she was half asleep, but the reflection pressed its palm against the glass and smiled. She ran to her bedroom, slammed the door, and turned off every light. But when she checked the mirror on her phone's front camera, the screen flickered. Just once, and her reflection blinked again, a full second after she did. The next morning, she covered every mirror in the house with towels. But her mom found one towel on the floor, the mirror uncovered, and a perfect foggy handprint on the inside of the glass. People say once your reflection learns how to move on its own, it won't stop watching you. And if you ever see it smile, that means it's almost ready to switch places. So if a mirror ever blinks at you, don't look again. It's already too late. If your phone ever rings at 2:19 a.m., don't pick it up, no matter what voice you hear. They call it the last caller, a voice that only shows up on nights when you're alone and the house feels a little too quiet. One girl said it started when she woke up to her phone vibrating. Unknown number, 2:19 a.m. Normally she'd ignore it, but it kept calling. 5 times, 10 times, non-stop. On the 11th call, it used her mom's ringtone. That's what made her answer. But instead of her mom's voice, she heard breathing. Slow, deep, like someone standing inches from the microphone. She hung up instantly, but then her phone buzzed again. A text message. Just 3 words. "I found you." She froze. Then her bedroom door creaked, just slightly, like someone was leaning against it from the other side. She checked the hallway camera on her phone. Nothing. But the audio was messed up, glitching like a scratched CD. Then she heard it through the feed. That same deep breathing, coming from right behind the door. She rushed to her window and climbed out, leaving her phone behind. The next morning, her mom found the phone on her bed. Screen cracked. One final notification on it. Missed call, 2:19 a.m. Caller, you. People say the last caller imitates someone you trust until the moment you answer, and after that, it knows exactly where you are. So if your phone ever rings at 2:19 a.m., don't answer. And whatever you do, don't text back. If you ever hear your name whispered from a closed window, don't answer it. People call it the whisper window, a thing that only shows up when you're awake way later than you should be. One kid said it started on a night he couldn't sleep. He was scrolling on his phone when he heard it. A soft whisper saying his full name, from the window behind his bed. He thought it was a prank until he realized the window was locked. And he lived on the 3rd floor. He pulled the curtains back just a little, and that's when he saw it. A face pressed against the glass. Not a person, not even close. Just a pale shape with a mouth that didn't move. Yet somehow the whisper got louder. It kept repeating his name, but the creepiest part? The voice sounded exactly like his mom, except she was asleep in the next room. He backed away and the whisper stopped. The face didn't. It just stared, waiting. The next morning, he checked the outside camera, and there was nothing on the footage, except at 3:17 a.m., the moment he heard the whisper, the window in his room slowly slid open, all by itself. People say the whisper window copies the voice of someone you trust, just to get you close enough to the glass. If you ever hear your name whispered from behind a window, don't look, don't answer. And whatever you do, don't open it. Have you heard of the window that knocks back? If you ever hear it, don't answer. People say it started with a boy who couldn't sleep during a storm. Rain was hitting his window, normal stuff, until something tapped 3 times. But the weird part? The tapping came from inside the glass, like something was trapped in it. He leaned closer and noticed fingerprints pressed against the window pane, sliding upward, even though nobody was touching it. Then the storm suddenly stopped. Everything went silent. That's when the knocking came again, slow, deliberate, following his breathing. He tried backing away, but every step he took, the fingerprints moved with him, dragging themselves across the glass like they were crawling after him. He yelled for his parents. They rushed in, turned on the lights, and the fingerprints vanished. But the window didn't. From the outside, they saw something the boy couldn't. A face pressed against the glass, stretched wide, like it was smiling through the pane. And the moment the dad looked directly at it, the smile moved. They smashed the window to get rid of it, but that made it worse. Because the knocking didn't come from the window anymore. It started coming from the walls. And every time it knocks, it gets closer. Have you heard about the shadow that blinks? People say it only appears when you're alone in a room with no mirrors. A girl first noticed it while studying late. She saw something move on her wall, like her shadow. Except she wasn't moving. She held perfectly still. Her shadow blinked. She thought she was imagining it, so she stood up and turned on every light. The shadow stayed exactly where it was, flat on the wall, staring at her without eyes. She tried backing away, and the shadow did something impossible. It took a step forward, separating from her body just a little. She grabbed her phone to record it, but her screen only showed static. No shadow, no movement, just white noise and a faint whisper repeating her name. She panicked, ran into the bathroom and slammed the door. And that's when she made the biggest mistake. She turned on the mirror light. In the reflection, the shadow wasn't behind her anymore. It was standing right over her shoulder, smiling with a mouth it didn't have before. When her parents found her, the mirror was shattered, like something stepped out of it. Some say the shadow only needs one blink, and after that, it remembers your face. Have you ever heard of the knockbacker? It's a creature people say only appears after you ignore a knocking sound that isn't supposed to be there. One night, a guy was home alone when he heard 3 slow knocks on his bedroom door. Not the front door, his bedroom door. He thought it was just the house settling, so he ignored it. But a few minutes later, the knocks came again. Same rhythm, same softness. He checked the hallway. No one there. He went back to his room, shut the door, and that's when the knocks came a 3rd time. Except this time, they were coming from inside the room behind him. He spun around, nothing. No one. So he did what everyone says you should never do. He knocked back. Just one light tap. And something tapped back instantly. His lights flickered, his phone froze on 1%, and he felt this cold pressure on the back of his neck, like someone leaning close enough to listen to him breathe. The next morning, he found tiny fingerprints on the inside of his door, like a child's, but stretched way too long. People online say the knockbacker doesn't stop after you respond once. It waits. And if you ever hear those 3 soft knocks, don't knock back. Have you ever heard of the last sleeper? People say it shows up only when you force yourself to stay awake past your breaking point. It happened to a college student pulling an all-nighter. Around 4 a.m., he started seeing something in the corner of his room. Just a shape at first, like someone standing completely still. He blinked, and it was suddenly closer. He thought he was hallucinating from no sleep, so he rubbed his eyes, looked again, and now it was right next to his bed. He grabbed his phone to turn on the flashlight, but the screen went black, except for one message. Don't fall asleep before I do. He backed into the wall, eyes wide open, fighting to stay awake. Every time he blinked, the figure twitched, like it was racing him. The second he yawned, it whispered something in his ear. You're losing. The next morning, his roommate found him on the floor, sitting upright with his eyes open, like he was still trying not to blink. And the weirdest part? His phone had a new alarm set for the next night at the exact same time, labeled Round 2. People online say once you hear this story, you start feeling tired too. Have you heard about the night caller? People say it only shows up after you ignore a phone call that comes at exactly 2:14 a.m. It happened to a girl who kept getting random calls from an unknown number every night, same time, same weird static on the other end. She finally got tired of it and let the phone ring. Big mistake. Minutes later, a knock at her front door. Slow, rhythmic, almost matching the ringtone she ignored. She checked the peephole. Nobody was there, but her phone buzzed again. A text this time. "I'm already inside." She sprinted to her mom's room, flipped the lights on. Empty. Kitchen? Empty. Living room? Empty. Except the TV was on, showing her own hallway, live, from a camera they never installed. In the corner of the screen, something tall was walking slowly toward her room. She ran, slammed the door shut, and called the police. They searched the whole house. Nothing. No camera. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there at all. But on her phone, the call history showed that the last incoming call wasn't from a number. It just said one word: answer. And people online swear that once you hear this story, your phone starts ringing at 2:14 a.m. too. Have you heard about the thing people call the window smiler? If you ever see it, don't blink, because blinking is what makes it move. It started with a teen who kept waking up at 3 a.m. to the feeling of someone watching him. One night, he finally checked his window, and there was a face pressed against the glass. Pale, wide-eyed, grinning way too hard. He jumped up to turn on the light, blinked once, and the face was suddenly closer. Not outside, inside the room, standing in the corner. He froze. His mom ran in after hearing him scream, but she didn't see anything. Just an open window and cold air pouring in. The next morning, he found something scratched into the glass. Nice blink. He tried to stay awake the next few nights. Coffee, energy drinks, anything. But eventually he slipped, and the second he blinked, his closet door swung open. The police said it was just sleep paralysis, but his mom found his phone on the floor, and the last video he recorded shows his room completely empty, except for a blurry, stretched-out smile right behind him. And the worst part? People online say if you hear this story, the smiler tries to visit you next, starting with your window. Did you know there's a sound people swear you should never answer? They call it the second knock. It started with a girl home alone during a storm. She heard a single knock at her front door, soft, almost polite. She ignored it. But a few seconds later, there was another knock. Same volume, same rhythm, like the first one was replayed. She looked through the peephole. No one was there. The second night, it happened again. One knock, pause, another knock. Identical, like someone recorded it and hit repeat. She asked her neighbor if he heard it too. He just shook his head and said, "If you hear the second knock, don't open the door. It's not a person." On the third night, she tried something different. She waited by the peephole. The first knock came, then the second. But this time, something clicked behind the door, like a lock sliding on its own. She stepped back. The doorknob twisted, slowly. She called the police. They checked the cameras. No one had approached her house, but the officer asked her one question before leaving. "When you heard that second knock, did it sound exactly the same as the night before?" She nodded. He just sighed and said, "Then it's already inside." Did you know some people claim they've seen a shadow that doesn't belong to anyone, and it moves on its own? It started with a guy who worked night shifts at an empty office building. Every night he'd walk past the same hallway, and every night the same thing happened. His shadow appeared normally on the wall, but beside it, there was another one. Taller, thinner, completely still. He thought it was just bad lighting, until one night the extra shadow moved. But he didn't. It slowly turned its head, like it was listening. Then it copied his exact posture, a second before he actually moved. The next night, he tried something. He stood perfectly still. The shadow didn't. It stepped closer. He bolted out of the building, didn't return for weeks. But when he finally worked another late shift, the hallway was empty. No extra shadow. Until he got home. Because when he turned off the lights in his bedroom, he saw it again, standing in the corner, waiting for him to move first. So if you ever see a shadow that reacts before you do, you're not alone in that room. Did you know there's a lantern people swear follows them at night, even when no one's holding it? It started with a hiker walking home through a foggy trail. She noticed a faint glow behind her, like an old paper lantern floating a few feet off the ground. She thought someone else was on the trail, until she realized the light wasn't flickering. It was breathing. Bright, dim, bright, dim. like something alive. She walked faster. The lantern sped up too. She turned around just once and saw it clearly. A pale lantern shape, but no person, no pole, nothing, just hanging there. When she got home, she told her neighbor. His face went pale. He said, "Whatever you do, don't look back at it twice." She didn't believe him. The next night, she went outside again. Fog rolled in. And there it was, waiting at the end of the street. She stared at it, then turned away. One look. But curiosity got her. She looked back again. And that was the last time anyone saw her. People say the lantern still wanders those streets, so if you ever see a glowing light in the fog, don't check twice. Did you know some people claim their mirror has blinked, even when they didn't? They call it the blinking reflection, and once you see it happen, it doesn't stop. One girl said it started while she was brushing her teeth. She wasn't tired, she wasn't distracted, but out of the corner of her eye, she saw her reflection. Blink twice. She didn't. It did. She froze, staring straight at it. Her reflection stared back, perfectly still, too still. She tried to convince herself she imagined it, until the next night when it happened again. But this time, her reflection didn't just blink. It smiled. A slow, unnatural grin she wasn't making. Terrified, she backed away, and her reflection didn't follow. It stayed standing at the mirror, still smiling. She threw a towel over the glass and tried to sleep, but around 3 a.m. she heard tapping, soft, rhythmic, coming from the bathroom. When she finally lifted the towel, her reflection wasn't smiling anymore. It was standing with its head tilted, staring at her with wide, unblinking eyes. And on the glass, smeared in fog from the inside, were the words, "It's my turn." People say if your reflection ever moves on its own, don't look away. Because once it realizes you noticed, it wants out. Have you ever heard of something people call the one-time door? It's a door in your house that opens by itself, but only once. And if you don't check it the first time, it starts opening at the worst possible moment. One guy said his bedroom door creaked open at 3 a.m., just a few inches. No wind, no pets, just silence. He got up, looked around, saw nothing, and closed it. He figured maybe the latch was loose. But the next night, he woke up to something else. Not the door opening, but the sound of breathing on the other side of it. Slow, deep, patient. He froze. Then the doorknob twisted. Not fast, just a tiny movement, like someone testing how quietly they could turn it. He called his friend the next day, and the friend told him something terrifying. When a door opens by itself, you're supposed to open it completely. Otherwise, whatever opened it tries again. That night, just to be safe, he left the door wide open. He stayed awake, staring at the dark hallway. Around 4 a.m., he heard footsteps, soft, barefoot, walking straight toward his room, but nothing entered the doorway. The footsteps stopped exactly at the threshold, like something was waiting for permission to cross. People say if a door in your house ever opens by itself, don't ignore it, because the second time, it's not the door that wants in. Did you know there's a creature people claim to see only when their hallway light flickers? They call him the man in the hallway light, and if you see him once, he keeps coming back. One girl said it started when her hallway bulb began blinking late at night. Just a quick flash. And for a split second, she saw a tall shadow at the far end of the hall. She thought it was her eyes playing tricks on her. But the next night, it flickered again, and this time, the shadow was closer. She tried recording it, but as soon as she pulled out her phone, the light stayed perfectly still. No flicker, no shadow. But when she turned off the camera, blink. And now the figure was standing halfway down the hall, like it moved only when she wasn't capturing it. Terrified, she unscrewed the bulb and replaced it with a brand new LED. Bright, stable, safe. She relaxed, until she noticed something. The new bulb wasn't flickering. It was dimming, slowly, steadily, as if something was stepping closer, blocking the light. She stared at it, frozen, as the brightness kept shrinking. And right before the bulb went completely dark, she finally saw his face. People say if your hallway light ever flickers more than once, don't look toward the darkness, because he's already looking back at you. Have you heard of something people call the quiet knocker? It's not a ghost, and it's not a person. It's the thing that knocks on your door when you're not paying attention. The first report came from a guy living alone in a tiny apartment. Every night around 2:14 a.m., he'd hear a soft tap on his front door. Nothing creepy, just one knock. But every time he checked, no one was there. So one night, he decided to stand right next to the door. Eyes open, lights on, waiting. And nothing happened. But the second he walked away, literally 2 steps, knock. He froze. He stepped back toward the door. Silence. He stepped away again. Knock. Like something was testing the distance. Now he was scared. Because it didn't matter how long he waited. The knocking only happened when he couldn't look directly at the door. Later, he set up a camera, sat on his couch, turned the volume all the way up. And when the knock finally came, the camera caught something. Not a person, but a long, pale hand sliding away from the bottom of the door frame, as if whatever it was wasn't knocking to get in. It was knocking to see if he would open it. People say if you ever hear a single knock in the middle of the night, don't go check. Whatever's out there only wants one thing, your attention. Have you ever heard of the mirror that blinks back? It's not a place. It's a thing people claim to see in their house. And the rule is simple. You never see it move. You only see it after you blink. It started when a girl was brushing her teeth before bed. She looked up at her bathroom mirror. Nothing weird. But when she blinked, there was a shadow behind her. Not a shape you could describe. Just tall, thin, and leaning in like it was trying to understand her. She spun around. Nothing there. Looked back at the mirror. Gone. She told herself it was just sleepiness until the next night. She blinked again, and this time the shadow was closer, right over her shoulder, the head tilted, almost curious. She froze. Her eyes started to burn. But she knew. The second she blinked again, it would move. And she was right, because when her eyes finally gave out, she blinked, and the shadow wasn't behind her anymore. It was in the mirror, standing where she should have been. Now people say if your reflection ever looks a little too still, or the room behind you looks wrong, don't blink. Whatever's sharing the mirror with you moves faster than your eyes can stay open. Have you heard about the thing people claim to see in doorways? The one they call the doorway smiler? They say it only shows up when a door is left slightly open. Not wide open, not closed. Just that tiny gap where you can barely see the darkness behind it. One kid first saw it after waking up at 3 a.m. His bedroom door was cracked open, just an inch. He swore he saw a face in the gap, not moving, not blinking, just smiling way too wide. He thought it was just his imagination, so he rolled over. But then, the door creaked. Another inch, and then another. By the time it was open halfway, he saw it clearly. A pale face stretched into a smile that looked carved on, and 2 eyes staring like it had been waiting for him to notice. He tried to scream, but the thing lifted a hand and slowly pressed a finger to its lips, telling him to stay quiet. The next morning, his parents found him asleep on the floor, pressed against the far wall. They asked why he was there, and all he said was, "I didn't want to sleep close to the door anymore." Now people online claim that if you ever wake up to a half-open door, don't close it, don't open it, just leave it. Because whatever is smiling behind it moves when you move. Did you hear about the woman people claim to see on empty roads at night? The one whose face is facing the wrong way? They call her the backward-facing woman, and she only appears to people driving alone. One guy said he first saw her standing on the shoulder of a forest road. Long black hair, white dress, not moving. But something felt off, so he slowed down. That's when he realized her head wasn't turned. It was completely backwards. He panicked and sped up, but a few seconds later, he heard tapping on his back window. Like someone was running behind him, keeping up. He looked in the mirror, and she was there. Sprinting on all fours, head twisted around, staring straight into his reflection. He didn't stop until he reached a gas station. Heart pounding, he ran inside. But the cashier just stared at him and whispered, "She followed you, didn't she?" The man asked how he knew, and the cashier pointed to the security monitor. A live feed of the parking lot. On the screen, she was standing right behind his car. Not moving, not blinking, just waiting. People say if you ever see her, never look at her through a mirror. That's how she attaches to you. And if you hear tapping on your window while you're watching this, don't check, just don't. Have you ever heard a noise in your walls and told yourself it was just the house settling? People say it might be something else, something they call the man who knocks from inside the walls. It started with a woman who moved into an old apartment. On her first night, she heard it. 3 slow knocks coming from inside the bedroom wall. Not the pipes, not the neighbors. It was too deliberate, too patient. She knocked back, just to prove to herself it was nothing. But the moment she did, the wall knocked again. The exact same rhythm. She froze. She whispered, "Hello?" And from inside the wall, she heard someone whisper her name back, but in a voice she didn't recognize. She ran to the living room, grabbed her phone, and started recording. When she played the audio back, she heard something she hadn't noticed before. Breathing. Slow, wet breathing, like someone pressing their face right up against the other side of the wall. By the third night, the knocking wasn't just behind the bedroom anymore. It followed her room to room, always staying just one wall behind her, like it knew exactly where she was. She finally tried sleeping on the couch, but right when she closed her eyes, she heard a new sound. Not knocking this time. Scratching, like someone trying to find a way out. Now people say if you ever hear knocking inside your walls, never knock back. Because if you answer him, he learns your voice. And once he knows it, he won't stay inside the walls for long. Have you ever dangled your feet off the bed and suddenly pulled them back for no reason? People say that instinct comes from something real, something they call the smiling thing under the bed. The first story came from a kid who kept waking up at the same time every night, 3:17 a.m. He said it wasn't nightmares. It was the feeling that someone was waiting for him to stand up. One night, he got tired of being scared and decided to look. He sat on the edge of his bed, legs hanging off, and he swore he could hear breathing underneath him. Slow, quiet, like someone trying not to laugh. He leaned down to check, but before he could look, a voice whispered from the darkness, "Don't move yet. I'm still smiling." He froze. He didn't breathe. He didn't dare pull his feet back up. Because whatever it was inches away. Very slowly, he slid backward into the center of the bed. The breathing stopped. Then he heard fingers tapping along the wooden frame, following his movement, like it was tracking him. He finally gathered the courage to jump off the opposite side and run to the hallway. When he turned to look back, for a split second, he saw something long and pale slide back under the mattress, smiling way too wide to be human. Now people say this creature waits for the moment your feet leave the ground, because that's when it tries to grab you. So if you ever feel the urge to pull your feet in at night, listen to it. Something might be smiling under your bed right now. Have you ever noticed your reflection look a little off? People talk about something called the shadow behind you, and the only time you ever see it is when your reflection isn't looking where it should. It started with a teenager getting ready for school. He was brushing his teeth when he realized his reflection wasn't matching him perfectly. It was subtle, just a tiny delay, like it was thinking instead of copying. He leaned closer to the mirror, confused, and that's when he saw it. A dark shape standing directly behind his reflection, close enough to touch him, but there was nothing behind him in the real world. He spun around, empty room. He looked back, and now the shadow was even closer, almost pressed against the reflection's shoulder, but totally still, except for its breathing. He backed away, heart pounding, but the reflection didn't move with him. It stayed frozen, staring at something over his shoulder, something he couldn't see. Then the lights flickered, just for a second, and when they came back on, the shadow wasn't in the reflection anymore. It was standing in the corner of the actual room, facing the wall, like it had just stepped out of the glass. He ran out, slammed the door, and refused to go back inside. And now the legend says, if your reflection ever stops matching you, don't turn around, because whatever it's looking at might still be behind you. Have you ever blinked and something was suddenly closer than before? People call him the man in the middle of the road, and he only appears when the street is completely empty. The first report came from a delivery driver heading home at 3 a.m. He was driving down a long, quiet road when he blinked, just once, and there was a man standing in the center of his headlights. No movement, no reaction, just staring straight at him like he'd been there the whole time. The driver slammed the brakes, heart pounding, but when he looked up, the man was gone. The road was empty again. He thought he imagined it, until he blinked. And now the man was standing right beside his window, still facing him, still not moving. The driver froze. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink, because somehow he knew the man only got closer when your eyes were closed. His eyes started burning, tearing up, but he refused to blink, until finally his vision went blurry for a split second. When he refocused, the man wasn't outside anymore. He was sitting in the passenger seat, staring forward, like he was waiting for the car to start moving again. The driver never talks about how he escaped. Nobody knows. But people who claim to see the man say the same thing. If you ever notice someone standing in the middle of an empty road, do not blink, not even once. Have you ever whispered something and heard someone whisper it back? People call it the listener at the door, and it only answers when you speak softly. It started with a girl staying at an old hotel during a storm. Around midnight, she heard knocking. Not loud, just 3 tiny taps, like someone testing the wood. She thought it was housekeeping, so she whispered, "Hello?" And that's when she heard it. Her exact voice, whispering the same word back, but from the wrong side of the door. She froze. She tried again, a little shakier. "Who's there?" And the voice answered again, still her voice, but this time it whispered, "Let me in." She looked through the peephole. Nothing, just an empty hallway and the quiet hum of the lights. She backed away, but whatever it was, started whispering louder, repeating everything she said, but delayed, like it was learning how to talk. And then it stopped. Total silence. When she finally built up the courage to check the hall again, there were small fingerprints all over the bottom of the door, as if something had been pressing its ear against it, listening the whole time. Now the legend says, if you ever hear a whisper answering you, don't respond, because the moment you do, you're not alone anymore. Have you ever heard of a creature that keeps walking even after you stop? People call it the thing that walks twice, and once you hear it, it's already too close. It started with a guy who went hiking alone after work. He was halfway down the trail when he noticed something weird. Every time he took a step, he heard 2 behind him. At first, he thought it was an echo, but echoes don't get louder, and they definitely don't start matching your breathing. He turned around. Nothing, just trees and the sound of his own heartbeat. So he keeps walking. 1 step, and then there it was again. Step, 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 step. Perfectly timed, perfectly wrong. He finally broke into a sprint, but the footsteps behind him didn't chase. They anticipated, like something already knew where he was going. When he reached his car and slammed the door, he looked back at the tree line, and for a second, he swears he saw a shape. Tall, thin, like it hadn't learned how to stand right. But the creepiest part wasn't what he saw, it was what he heard when he turned the key in the ignition. Step, 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 right next to the window. And he hadn't moved at all. Since that night, everyone who's heard that Did you know there's a figure people claim to see in quiet neighborhoods just after midnight? Something they call the backward man? It started when a girl walking home saw a tall man standing under a streetlight. Nothing unusual until she noticed his body was facing away from her, but his head was turned completely around, staring right at her. She froze. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He just watched. Trying not to panic, she slowly crossed the street. But when she looked back, the backward man wasn't under the light anymore. He was standing behind her, same twisted neck, same unblinking eyes. She ran. Every corner she turned, he was already there. Never walking, never running, just appearing. Closer, every time she looked away. Terrified, she called her brother. He told her something she didn't understand at first. Don't look at his face, look at his feet. If they're pointing toward you, he can reach you. She glanced down. His feet were pointed right at her. She screamed, and suddenly everything went dark. When police found her phone the next day, it was cracked but still recording. The last frame showed a streetlight, and beneath it, a man standing perfectly still, body facing away, head staring straight into the camera, and under the video, someone had typed, "Don't turn around." Did you know there's a voice people claim to hear only when their room is completely dark? They call it the whisper under the door. It started with a boy who kept hearing his mom calling him from the hallway late at night. Soft, calm. "Come here, I need you." But every time he opened the door, the hallway was empty. No footsteps, no lights, nothing. The next night, he heard it again, but this time, it wasn't calling him. It was whispering his name from under the door. Slow, careful, like it was practicing how to sound human. He ran to his mom's room, terrified, and shook her awake. She told him something he wishes he never heard. If you hear a voice when the lights are off, don't answer it, and don't open the door. Because whatever's whispering only knows the voices of the people you trust, but it doesn't know what they say. Later that night, the boy heard it again, his mom's voice, perfectly copied. "Open the door. It's me." He stayed frozen. Minutes passed. Then the whisper changed. The voice dropped. Deeper. Wrong. Open it. I know you hear me. He didn't move. In the morning, he checked the floor and saw thin scratch marks along the bottom of the door frame, like something had been clawing its way closer. And right in the center were 3 words etched into the wood: "Let me in." If you ever hear someone whisper your name from a closed window, don't answer, no matter what. There's a story people tell about something called the whisper window, a voice that only speaks when you're alone, usually late at night, and always from the wrong side of the glass. One boy said he first heard it while doing homework. His window was shut, locked, and covered by curtains. But he heard someone outside whisper, soft and shaky, "Hey, can you open this?" He thought it was a prank, until the whisper said his name, perfectly, like someone was right next to his ear. He pulled the curtain back, just a tiny bit, and the whisper stopped. But here's the part that freaked him out. Outside his window was the second floor, nothing to stand on. No ledge, no tree, just empty air. He stepped closer, trying to listen, and then he heard it again. Not outside this time, but behind him. "Thank you for turning around." He bolted out of the room, slammed the door, and slept downstairs. The next morning, they found faint breaths on the inside of his window. Not handprints, breath marks. Like someone had pressed their face against the glass from the wrong side. People say the whisper window doesn't want to come in. It wants you to look long enough for it to learn your voice. Once it does, it can whisper from anywhere.